back for another day of the Daily Dose, and as the seeds continue to fall at Wimbledon, my predictions looked absolutely horrific for day three, but I think a lot of people's did. But I thought it was best to come under some advisement, and we've brought back Christian Monaghan from the first serve. Christian, good to have you back.
Mate, I can easily say because I wasn't on the latest episode of your predictions, I could have said I got all my predictions correct, but I'm going to be honest and say I was with you. I had so many of my predictions wrong, and it's like so many people because just so many seeds have fallen, right? In these first few days, and I mean, you mentioned I think it's what 31 seeds out of a possible 64 on both the men's and women's side. I mean, that's utterly ridiculous. It goes back to the days of 2013. You remember that sort of the Black Wednesday, I think that they referred it to, all these seeds dropping like flies, and it seems like the same case. And it's not just seeds; they're actually top players, right? Real, some of these are contenders to actually win the thing. So that's why it's just been such a shock.
Yeah, it's certainly been a little bizarre, and I thought that we'd seen the chaos, the mayhem, and the massacres on days 1 and 2, but day three continued to deliver another 8 seeds falling across the men's and women's. So it's far from over. It'll be interesting to see. As we said, it means that there's some less known matchups and things starting to happen in round two, and there'll be some more in round three. So we look forward to seeing what that looks like delivering. But as we have done, we started yesterday. I decided to do Aussie Watch again, but it was very thin on the ground yesterday with Jordan Thompson, and he made hard work of it, but he got through. So at least we'll have someone to talk about tomorrow. But Aussie Watch today, a little thicker on the ground, a little more helpful for us. We've got 4 Aussie matches to talk about, which is a good number, I think. The bad news is there's some big names they're coming up against, and Alex Vukic is the first of those. He comes up against Yannick Sinner. They're not getting any bigger than Yannick Sinner.
It's obviously one of the biggest tests in tennis at the moment. At Wimbledon terms, probably Carlos Alcaraz is the biggest test on grass, but then it's Sinner, right? And if you remember back last year, Vukic actually played Alcaraz in the second round at this same stage on court one. Vukic actually had the break in the first set, couldn't serve it out, had a first set tiebreak, and then from there, sort of, yeah, just couldn't get the job done. Alcaraz went to another gear as expected. So he's familiar with these types of big matches. It's just Sinner has, like, how do you even put an argument for Vukic to win this match, right? Let alone to make it competitive and win a set. It's just going to be such a tall order for Vukic. But I guess at the same time, he'll take it with the perspective of it'll be another great experience for him to grow. He's 29 years of age. He's obviously on to the back end of his career now, or sort of heading towards that stage now. And to have these sort of opportunities still, at this stage of his career, I guess he's just going to cherish every moment on center court. So it's going to be a big occasion for him. But Sinner should really get another routine win under his belt, as he did in the first round against his Italian compatriot Luca Nardi, who, Sinner just looks a class above everyone else. And I include Alcaraz in that discussion because we see Alcaraz against Fognini, for example, a five setter. You can't count on him to be consistent in terms of winning in straight sets every single time. Whereas Sinner is conserving his energy, but for Vukic, it's going to be very, very difficult.
Yeah, it certainly is. Doing my little bit of detailed data before this, the bizarre stat from this one, just absolutely useless. These two guys, 6 years in age difference, turned pro in the same year, both in 2018. So you do the maths on that. 2018,
Yeah.
Yannick Sinner would have been all of about 16. Alex Vukic would have been 22. In that, since then, 19 titles for Yannick, none at this level for Alex. $41 million in prize money versus 3. So I think that puts it all into perspective. Sinner with a 2-0 record, and I expect that to be 3-0 in 3 sets. Let's move on to the next of our matches, and we've got Alex Demon, or the Demon, coming in, and he's obviously our greatest Aussie hope now. He's our only remaining male seed, and he comes up against Arthur Cazot from France, and that might be a familiar name for people who are tuning in, and that's because he played Adam Walton in the first round and knocked over an Aussie.
He did. He knocked over Walton in 5 sets. Usually the Aussies get it done in 5 sets. Referring back to Jordan Thompson with those 2 5-set epic victories over the past few days. But this should be another sort of comfortable win for Dimonor. We saw first round against Carlos Baena. There were a couple of doubts lingering in terms of his Wimbledon campaign, just because he hadn't had much sort of match play on the grass. He lost that game to Hiri Leheshka at Queens, and besides that, he just had to rely on the practice courts. So there was a bit of nerves, a bit of doubt, but I thought those 2 sets in particular against Carlos Baena, he was pretty much flawless. It wasn't until that third set where, he was tested a little bit, went to a tie break, but I think in terms of being able to control the play, control the rallies, dictate points. This should be on Alex's racket. There's no doubt about that. And for Kazor, um, look, I haven't watched too much of him play. I saw a bit of him against Walton. Um, he just doesn't have the firepower, the weapons to really trouble a player like Alex. He can put the ball on a string all day, just play those rallies and wait for the mistake on the other side of the net. So for me, if Alex does drop a set, it will be quite disappointing, I think.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I think if you have a look, Kazor's been playing in these challenges. To go back and see when Alex last lost to a player outside the top 50. I know he lost to Yuri Lehechka in his last outing. You have to go all the way back to Dubai in February where he lost to a guy by the name of Marin Cilic, who, whilst he's outside the top 50, also at his absolute best is, a star. We know that. So, Alex shouldn't lose this game, but hey, all bets are off at the moment. This should be a straight sets win, though, if he's going to make the most of his opportunity to bounce back from that performance on grass a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, for sure. I think for Alex as well, he needs to have, I guess, another deep run in terms of defending points because remember, 12 months ago, he reached the quarterfinals at Wimbledon. Couldn't play, unfortunately. It was supposed to be against Novak Djokovic, but pulled up short with that injury on match point against Arthur Fils in the previous round. So he's out for a bit of redemption in this tournament. And you could see the fire in his eyes in that first round where he just wants to really start afresh and really kickstart his campaign in a good way. And we saw that against Carlos Bueno. So hopefully, from an Australian point of view, he can really kick on and carry that momentum into the second round and onwards.
Yeah, well, that is certainly the game plan, you'd think, for Alex de Minaur. Let's move on to the next of the Aussies. And we look at Ben Shelton will play up against Rinky Hijikata. And Shelton, again, another one who knocked out an Aussie in the first round. He took down Alex Bolt.
Yes, I think, upset alert, I think Rinky can get the win here. I know I'm being crazy, but I'm tipping Rinky to win this, maybe in 4 or 5 sets. I know it's going to be very difficult, but I watched the second and third sets in those tie breaks where Shelton played Alex Bolt in that first round, and I think Shelton's a bit vulnerable at the moment. I know he came up clutch, obviously. It's very difficult to break down his serve, but look, I was very impressed with Rinky's first round win against David Goffin. Yes, Goffin isn't the same player as he once was, former world number 7, but the way Rinky was able to handle that match, didn't get broken once throughout that match, which I thought was pretty impressive. You expect a bit of ebbs and flows in Rinky's matches, but from there it was a mature performance, and I think he might be ready to cause an upset here against Shelton. I could be wrong; it could blow up my face. Could be a straight sets defeat, sent home packing, but. I'm going to go on a limb and say this could be the biggest upset of the tournament so far, or one of on the men's side at least.
Yeah, it's a big title to take, right? Some of the matches we've seen. But yeah, when you have a look back through his last couple of weeks, Shelton obviously lost to Lerner Tien, who's already bombed out here in Mallorca. I think he lost to Arthur Rinderknecht in the round of 32 at the Queen's tournament. You got to go back to Halle when he had some form, where he got through to the semi-finals and lost to Alexander Zverev. So he's not exactly in convincing grass form at the moment. That said, he's got a game that should be able to stand up against Hijikata. But Hijikata can be challenging for a lot of these players, and we've seen that previously in his, his form lines. These guys have only played the once before, though, and that it was in 2024, I think, in Mallorca, in terms of the main tour. They have played twice on the Challenger and Futures Tour when they were, both a little bit younger, and Hijikata they split those 1-1 back in 2022. So Hijikata certainly has won against him before. It's a few years ago, but they're both still, young, still got developing games. I think it's Ben Shelton 22 and Hijikata maybe 24 at the moment. And at his best, Hijikata, I think he's better than, ranked around the 80s. I think he's probably cusp of the top 50s, if not a bit higher. He's just got to get a bit of that consistency, and here's an opportunity for him. The grass suits him. So, I had this one sort of as a flip of the coin and just leaning Shelton because of the top end of his, his ceiling that we haven't probably seen in the last couple of weeks, but we did see a few weeks ago in Halle. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, nothing's really surprising me now, is it? Like, it's been absolutely bizarre. But well, we'll put our fingers together, our fingers crossed, and everything together for Hijikata, and hopefully he can get the job done and get through to the third round. It'd be great to see. The final of the Aussies in Aussie Watch is Dasha Daria Kasatkina, our seeded woman, playing Irina Camela Begu from Romania. Begu's one who's been on the tour for a little while. She's been a thorn in a few people's sides at different points, especially early in these draws. She's not someone that you typically see going very deep in these draws, but she's not, I guess, not a stranger to throwing an upset in early in a slam either.
Yeah, for sure, and that's why I wouldn't be surprised at all if she was able to get this scalp over Kasatkina, because let's not forget Dasha had been very disappointing on the grass in that grass court swing. Three consecutive defeats, all in the first round, post Roland Garros. So I thought on the clay over there in Paris, she actually played some of her best tennis ever since she switched allegiance to Australia. Obviously, those first couple of months were a bit. Not unsettling, but you can tell it was probably playing in the back of her mind, probably thinking, "Oh, well, does Australia accept me?" This and that, other lingering questions in her mind. Now you see she was playing a bit more freely, but yeah, post that she's been basically back to the same old. I think back to the same old inconsistent dasher. But that first round in particular, I'm sure you caught it, Chris, that she vomited just before she entered on court, which I thought was a pretty funny moment. She found the funny side of it post match. Obviously, once you win, you can find the funny side of it. But hopefully, she doesn't experience those same sort of nerves. It is good in a sense because obviously you care, you want to win, and she's obviously such a tough competitor. So this game against Begu, I think she'll know deep down that she has to be switched on from the get go because she'll understand that Begu, she's unforgiving. She will not give you any chances if you give it to her. So it's going to be one in which Dash will really hope to get this done in straight sets. Otherwise, if it goes to a third, Becca's got a real chance to pull it off here.
Yeah, I certainly think that's the case. Begu showed some chinks in her armour in that first round, going to 3 sets, going over 2 hours. Kasatkina, though, as you say, should win this. She's got 8-1 head-to-head on her. They've never played on grass before. But again, as we've seen, form's a little bit out the window. Kasatkina did a good job. Wasn't blitzing or overly convincing, but got it done in straight sets as you'd expect of a player, in the top 16. So work to do here, but this is one that she should get done, and she should be taking the opportunity to advance forward. So I'm going to go Kasatkina to get it done in straight sets. That rounds out our Aussie watch. Let's head to some other ones. And with so many seeds gone, there's some not less familiar names, but names that might not have been the headline names that we're expecting to be talking about heading into day 4. Let's talk about Gael Monfils. Now, there's a name and a blast from the past, isn't there? Coming up against Martin Fucsovics from Hungary. These two, this is probably an interesting matchup on the men's side. You've got a 38-year-old against a 33-year-old. Monfils just inside the top 50. Fucsovics just outside the top 100, but has certainly been ranked higher. It's an interesting matchup, but it could be an entertaining one, I think.
Another 5 set, you reckon, Chris, written all over it? I think so because Monfils, I don't know how he does it for his age, nearly 40 years of age, and to be able to produce not only high quality tennis, but over such a long period of time in these matches. I mean, 4 or 5 hours. Some of these matches are going through to the back end of his career. Just incredible. And that comeback against Hugo Humbert from 2 sets to 1 down in the opening round to knock out a seed, which obviously we're familiar with by now in this tournament. It's you just got to tip your hat off to him. The way he does it, the way he goes about his business. I just can't think of a player who's more liked on tour than Gael Monfils. Just the smile he brings, the energy, the enthusiasm. Crowds just flock to see him play just for the entertainment factor. And it's just great that he's still playing on the tour, hopefully for a couple more years to come. But yeah, this game against Fucsovics, it's could be a bit of a danger game for the Frenchman because yes, Fucsovics probably had his produced his best tennis maybe I'd say 2 to 3 years ago when he was really knocking on the door to being seeded in these Grand Slam tournaments. Now he's sort of teetered off a bit, but at the same time, it's going to be a lot of ups and downs. I think in this match, a lot of inconsistent flows because look. Just looking at it on paper, generally, I just can't see either of these players winning in straight sets. That's just not how they do things, right? That's not how they operate. So, look, I'm really torn as to who to pick from this game. It's going to be a real tight tussle.
Yeah, I think, well, they both went to 5 in the first round, right? And it won't surprise you to know that when you look at the 4 times they've played before, none of them at Grand Slams, 3 of them have gone to 3 sets. And the one that didn't go to 3 sets was decided 4 and 5. So it wasn't exactly a clean, straight, easy win for Gael Monfils in the second one. So interestingly, though, the last time they met, it was Fucsovics who came out on top on outdoor play back in 2024. So it's interesting. 2 veterans of the tour. I was just doing some maths on Monfils. Monfils has played, if my maths is right here, 927 matches on tour. That is a huge career.
That's
That is
huge.
that's huge experience. When you have a look, I mean, he's 5 years
Yeah.
older than Fuchsovix, but Fuchsovix has only played just over 300.
That's incredible. That's insane. Obviously, Monfils and the career he's had, you'd expect him to obviously play a bit more. But to have what 600 odd more matches, it goes to show. Because even early in his career, he was going deep in fourth round, a couple of quarterfinals, I believe, of slams. So it's not super surprising, but at the same time, just the way he defies the odds, it's just ridiculous sometimes the tennis he produces. So let's hope for another epic year.
Yeah, look, I'd hate to see how many sets that totaled up for Gael Monfils because he doesn't do it easy, as you said.
Mm,
My heart telling me that Monfils will get it done in 4 or 5, and I think it is as much heart. My head's probably saying, as you said, it's probably a toss of the coin, and it's just a great story, right? It's like when he won a title earlier this year, like it was against all odds. He's kind of
mm.
on the tail end of his career, and to see another deep run to maybe the third, fourth quarters here would be phenomenal to see.
Yeah, for sure. I think he won that title in Auckland back in January, and that's where he made a lot of headlines with his age, and he's still doing it. He's still on the tour, so hopefully he can get the win here because yeah, it'd be great for the fans and for himself to make a third round again at Wimbledon, would just be insane.
It certainly would be. It'd be a wild story, and then who knows from there. Again, you can never count out the aging Frenchman. He's a superstar. Next up, and this one I think will be entertainment deluxe. It is Gregor Dimitrov, who at one point was touted as the next big thing that was going to come along before the Alcaraz and Sinners of the world, and probably hasn't quite reached those heights, but still has had a pretty damn solid career so far. But he's coming up against the man who I would tag as possibly the most entertaining,
Mm.
both for his tennis and for some of the other things that he does on court on the ATP Tour in Corentin Moutet.
A few years ago, Dimitrov, I thought his career was almost over. Just the way he was playing, he wasn't his old self, right? Competing at the top, losing games that he shouldn't have, and injuries really got in the way. But since then, the past couple of seasons have been really positive for the Bulgarian, really getting back into it and competing against these top players. So the same in the second round now is no surprise, but. Yeah, might say, as you mentioned, he's the absolute showman, isn't he? You would have seen the highlight in the first round with the tweener winner. I think you sent that to me actually, by the way. So
Yeah.
that just the way he just goes about his tennis, it's a bit. He reminds me of Bublik in a sense, where look, yes, he takes it seriously, but at the same time, not too seriously, right? He's got that balanced measure about himself where there's some shots he's just going to try and entertain the crowd, like at Monfils as well, right? Um, and that's where he sort of gets himself into a bit of trouble. Whereas Dimitrov can actually produce those brilliant shots, but at the same time, he's got a bit more, let's say, class about him and a bit more consistency. Whereas he can really produce it in those bigger moments, those bigger points, and I think that is why Dimitrov is going to prevail here, maybe in 4 sets against the Frenchman, but. Yeah, I saw on social media as well a video pop up of Dimitrov, one of his returns in his first round win, and it just oozes class. The backhand return, just the way it dropped in, that just epitomizes Dimitrov's quality and talent. And like you said, was touted as a future Grand Slam champion in his junior days and growing up. Obviously, hasn't got there, and he won't. You'd think, but this should be a really entertaining affair. This game.
Yeah, it should be an entertaining affair. Yeah, I compared someone when we were talking about Quarantine Mute the other day. I compared him, and he used the Bublik, and I said he's kind of like Bublik, and then he's got some elements of Nick Kyrgios about him too. There's the entertainment, there's the absolute just
Mm,
brain snaps on the court, and he can
mm,
get the sulks. He can do. It's well worth watching because it can
mm,
be absolute highlight reel. It can be absolute train wreck. It's not look
mm.
away tennis.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you said, Dimitrov going back 2017, I think he won the ATP Tour Finals, and
Mm,
he was going to be the next thing. As we said, I mean, he's been up to number 3 in the world, but he's not quite there at the moment. And unfortunately for him, even if they win through this, it looks like his path is basically Tommy Paul and then Yannick Sinner. So he hasn't even been a beneficiary of all these seeds dropping. They're all clustered in his section of the draw. But we'll wait and see what can come from here. It'd be some story if Mute did get past him. But as we know, Mute made the final last week at Mallorca. So never say never.
mm.
Well, let's move on to the women's game, and we can have a look at a couple of women's matches. Clara Towson versus Anna Kalinskaya. And these are two names I certainly didn't think we'd be talking about this early in the tournament. Maybe should one of them make a run, but this one's poised pretty well for both of them to have a bit of a crack here and push into the third round.
Yeah, Clara Towson's one who I've been trying to follow over the past year on the tour. She really, burst onto the scene probably about 3 years ago when she came out of the Challenger circuit, and produced some really impressive results, but in the past 12, 24 months, just yeah, hasn't been able to quite get over that next hump in terms of beating the players ahead of her in the rankings and these top elite players. So this game against Cullen Sky, it's going to be a real test. Cullen Sky is a top 20, top 15 player, right? Previously. So this is going to be a massive test. I expect the serve to really dominate this matchup. Not expecting too many breaks. But I mean, the way Torsen came back against Heather Watson in that first round really showed, her level headedness and her maturity. Only 22 years of age, still got so much time on her side. And Kalinskaya sort of look, I'd probably tip Kalinskaya here just for the experience factor. A few years older, but has sort of been in these moments a bit more than Torsen has. Albeit obviously it's still the second round of Wimbledon, so like it's a quarterfinal or a semi-final or anything of that nature. But I wouldn't be surprised either if it's a three-setter, to be honest.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Cullen Sky hasn't been in the best of form in recent times. I know she bombed out of the French in the first round. The last tournament, she fell in the qualifiers in Berlin. So it was good to see her get that win in the first round. But you talked about her serve. Her serve sort of deserved her in that first round a little bit. I think just three aces, 60 odd percent of her first serve won, which isn't horrific. But Torsen, we know, like she put down 13 aces in those three sets, and it was a big part of her comeback. 73% first serve. If she gets that serve going and Cullen Sky serves like she did in the first round, Cullen Sky is going to find trouble. If Cullen Sky can find her serve, though, I think that's where Torsen is probably going to find herself on her heels, and the momentum might undo her. So we'll wait and see. I can see this going either way. I'm actually going to go Torsen, but not with a lot of confidence. She has played a little bit more tennis in recent times on grass and seen a little bit more form. So, but yeah, as you say, these two players, Cullen Sky has knocked on the door of the top 10 before, so anything's possible if she can find her best. But she's another one of these. And I don't want to be that person, but some of these Eastern European players who are quite inconsistent in the women's game. She's one of those that's getting that tag. We talked about Samsonova and a couple of others that sit around that sort of 16 to 25 range. She's one of those ones that's been in that range as well and just couldn't find the consistency to get inside the top 10. Her best should see her being a top 10 player, but she hasn't been able to deliver that back to back to back.
Yeah, for sure. I think also Kalinskaya, Australian Open earlier this year, she was supposed to enter the main draw, but the last second she pulled out. So she's had a lot of injury troubles in the past 6 months or so. So in terms of the fitness as well, going deep into these majors is sort of another concern given that. So Torsen, I think looking at this on paper at least, it's going to probably provide her with a bit more confidence to say, look, this is my time. This is my moment to really, make my name for myself here at this tournament. And given the seeds that have fallen, a player like Torsen to really, go far, in this main draw isn't out of the realms of possibility by any means. So I think every player now remaining in the draw really sees himself as a big contender to go deep, and rightly so.
Yeah, 100%. And this is one of those. Torsen looks like she's one of those people. If she can take the opportunity here, this could be one of those coming of age stories. If she can get through, maybe a fourth round matchup with an Iga Swiatek or something like that. That's the sort of thing that can be the momentum that spurs on a career from here and takes her inside the top 16 and further. And we know what it means once she gets inside those top 16. That said, the final match we're going to have a look at, the winner of the Torsen and Cullen Sky match will play the winner of Maria Sakkari and Elena Rybakina. And Maria Sakkari found herself in the headlines in the lead up to this tournament, calling out some poor behaviour from a player. Rybakina, though, she is an absolute handful. We know Sakkari at her best. She's been top 10 as well, but she's really struggled to ever deliver on the big stage.
Do you reckon Rybakina is out for a bit of revenge, given Sakkari, that altercation you were referring to was against Putintseva, a fellow Kazakh? So I don't know, maybe there might be a bit of bitterness there. I doubt. I'm just putting it out there, just joking. But I think for Sakkari here, look, she's been missing for quite a while in terms of, obviously she's been on the tour, but I say that in the sense of she hasn't shown up in these major tournaments, right, for a long time now. And against a player like Rybakina, who won this title obviously back in 2022, arguably the biggest test, I can see her having, over the past. I mean, I can't really think back to many big games she's played because she's obviously been bowing out in the first rounds on a lot of occasions. So for Sakkari, I don't know, potentially nerves might get in the way because she hasn't been at this stage against a top player like this of Rybakina's caliber for quite a while, and that could sort of play into Rybakina's hands. But for this one here, I'm going with Rebukina because I've been really impressed over the past couple of months. The way she's bounced back, obviously during the Australian summer and post that, it's been a bit of touch and go considering the coaching situation with her and a few other things off the court which have really rattled her and rightfully so. It probably would with most players, to be fair. And the pressure she had on her shoulders after winning Wimbledon, we've seen with multiple players who have won one Grand Slam. Then after that, they just failed to show up and produce that same sort of tennis. But for Rybakina, I just think she's on a different level to some of those previous one-time winners. She's just, yeah, she's her ceiling is very, very high, and she has barely reached that potential whatsoever. So that's why I think before the tournament with you, Chris, I touted her as a potential winner to even make the final. I think it was against Sabalenka in the final. So this could be, look, a tight affair, but I'm still sticking with Rybakina to get the job done here.
Yeah, I think I actually tried to. I actually really liked the Sakkari story. Obviously, Greek tennis made this this breakthrough when Sakkari and Tsitsipas emerged, and they've kind of followed similar trajectories. Tsitsipas a bit more with the crazy dad element, and maybe not as quickly back down the rankings, but nonetheless, it feels like as their careers sit, they've left a lot on the table. I know if you take out the years of 2020 and 2021, where she made a couple of fourth rounds and some semi-finals at some Grand Slams, this is a career that's kind of peaked being a top 32 player at a lot of Grand Slams. First, second, third, first, second round exits. Which
Yeah.
for the level of talent that Maria Sakkari had, a player who was ranked number 3 in the world at one point there after some of those semi-final appearances. She's just left a lot on the table. You look at Rebecca, she's had a really good, as you said, despite all of the challenges she's had this year, really good grass court season, has been really strong. I think she's 4-2 on grass this season. A season in total 30-12 this year. Everything stacks up to Rebecca here, but hey, as we said, the form guide's out the window. If there's a time for Maria Sakkari to find her form of old and go on a deep run, now's it.
Especially now, given, like I said before, the seeds are tumbling. This is a chance again. Like that just provides a player like Sakkari so much confidence because in the past she's thinking, how am I supposed to get past a draw with not a good ranking? Obviously, most of the tournaments not being seeded, and she's been given some brutal draws in the past. But now, obviously, Rebukina, yes, a top quality player, we know that. But look, you've got to look ahead and think this. I'm not going to get too many more chances in my career, given if Sabalenka, Gov, Iga, these types of players stick around for the foreseeable future. When's my time going to come? Is my window already closed? So for Sakkari, I think that's going to be at the back of the mind for sure.
Well, we can throw the form guide out the window because if it's just on form, Yasmin Paolini would have been in the third round after last night. She, along with 30 other seeds,
Correct.
is not. And I have a feeling we might see a couple more tonight. Hopefully a little bit less mayhem and just craziness. But Christian Monaghan, as always, a big thank you to you. If people want to catch more and go in-depth into some articles and catch up on more of what's happening at Wimbledon, The First Serve on all their social media channels, thefirstserve.com.au as well. Love having you on, mate. Looking forward to talking to you again over the next few days as this roller coaster of a Wimbledon continues.
Cheers, Chris. Appreciate it.